Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates. Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to the detailed analysis of current affairs published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 6th of June 2021 are listed on your screen and the timestamping for the same is given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article itself. This article was published on page 11th of the Hindu newspaper, and this article is actually talking about a recent new development as far as bird flu is concerned. Recently, there was a first human infection case of H10N3 bird flu in China. Well, this is the first case of such human infection of a rare variant of a virus H10N3, which usually affect the poultry only. When it comes to the relevance of this article, it is relevant for the current affairs of national and international importance, and UPSC have been proactive in asking questions related to the disease across the globe. Previously, UPSC has also asked a question on the H1N1 virus. It was in the year 2015 when the UPSC asked about a H1N1 virus which was in the news for some reason. The answer to this question was very simple, it was bird flu. Now, this was a very simple answer. Well, UPSC can go beyond this. They can ask about the symptoms of a particular disease. They can ask about the different variants of a virus. They can also ask about the side effects of the virus. They even may ask about the transmission of a particular virus from person to person, from animal to person, from bird to person, and so on and so forth. So whenever you are reading about a particular disease, including the existing COVID-19, you should know that there are different aspects of a disease which you need to cover for this examination. However, when it comes to a particular disease, UPSC is very unlikely to ask questions in the mains examination. However, they can ask questions related to the health and the health infrastructure in India, their historical aspect and future measures. When it comes to this virus or the H10N3, this virus or this virus strain has a very low pathogenesis. It means it does not have a very high ability to cause the disease. So once a person is infected with this virus, he or she is very likely to cause communicable transfer of the disease to the other person. The low pathogenesis is also applicable to the birds, and this implies that the virus did not spread easily among the poultry and was likely to be restricted to a limited population. So if the virus is infecting 10 poultry from the 100, it is very unlikely that it will infect the other 90 in a faster manner. When it comes to the bird flu, well, bird flu is also known as avian influenza. It is a name which is used to describe a viral infection. So first, it is a viral, it is not a bacterial one. Secondly, it is reported mostly in the birds but has a potential to affect humans as well as the other animals. As we have seen the case of January outbreak of bird flu in India this year, we have seen a rise of the cases affecting hundreds and thousands of birds across states, especially the states like Rajasthan. The most common strain of this avian influenza virus that causes the severe respiratory disease is your H5N1. However, apart from this, H1N1 is also one of the most important variant or the strain of this virus which has caused an outbreak across the world. The concern of bird flu is that it has a very high mortality rate in the humans. Almost 60% is the main cause of concern. It means if there are 100 people who are infected with the avian influenza, there are more likely the case when 60% of them could die. And this is the reason why whenever India see a H1N1 kind of a outbreak, we say that people have to keep a very cautious step when they are infected with this kind of disease. In January this year, as I've discussed, the two strains of bird flu were found in India, including H5N8 and H1N1. Well, we need not to go into the nomenclature of these viruses, that why they are named as H5 or N8. However, we will look into the different kind of viral infections which are discussed or which are related to the human population. Before that, H1N1 virus can jump species and it can easily infect humans after the infected bird. So when a person come in contact with an infected bird or they eat the infected bird, they can get infected with this virus. The first case of H5N1 infection in the human was reported in Hong Kong. Well, why these kind of diseases are generating in these nations or the Asian nations? Well, because the eating habit or the dietary habits of Eastern or East Asian nations is mostly including the animals and the birds. So they have high consumption of poultry, they have high consumption of the marine animals, and they have high consumption of insects, including snakes. And this is one of the reasons why we often read about an outbreak of viral disease from these nations, including the current viral infection across the globe. Influenza viruses are of four types: type A, type B, type C, and type D. Well, as far as influenza type D virus is concerned, they normally affect the cattle population and are not known to infect or cause illness in the people. However, when it comes to the type A, B, and C, people or the human can also get infected, and type A is the most infected form of influenza viruses. Type A influenza virus are capable of infecting animals, although it is more common for the people to suffer the ailment associated with this type of flu. So, both animals as well as humans are part of this type of virus. Wild birds are the host for this type of influenza virus. Type A influenza virus is constantly changing and is generally responsible for the large flu epidemic. There is another subvariant of the type A which is also known as the influenza A2 virus. Well, this kind of virus is spread by people who are already infected. So from bird to a human, the type A works or type A1 works. From human to human, the another variant or A2 variant also work as a spreader. When it comes to the type B flu or the type B influenza virus, well, it is unlike type A flu viruses. It is found only in the humans. It may cause a less severe reaction than the type A virus. However, it may occasionally be very extremely harmful. This type of virus are not classified by the subtype and they do not cause pandemic. When it comes to the type C, the influenza type C infection generally cause mild illness and are not thought to cause human flu epidemics. And from all the three, that is type A, B, and C, this type C is the least harmful. With this, now we move to the question which is related to this article. Read the question carefully and answer in the comment box. Now we move to the next article for the day. This article was published on page 11th of the Hindu newspaper, and this article actually talks about the recent development which was taking place in the coastal area of Sri Lanka. The article is talking about the rising number of Chinese enclaves on the land of Sri Lanka and why this is the concern for other nations including India was the part of this article. The context of the article says that China has been allowed by the Sri Lanka or the Sri Lankan authorities to build enclaves. And enclaves here means that Chinese people will be staying here. And these enclaves will be developed around the Colombo port. This is supported actually by a separate statutory provision. A separate act was passed by the legislation in the Sri Lanka to give authorization for the Chinese authorities to come up and build these kind of enclaves. Members of the opposition parties in Sri Lanka, citizens and many private groups are actually opposing this move and calling it to be the foreign interference on Sri Lankan sovereignty. Why? Because once a foreign entity start building an enclave in the Sri Lanka, they might have better access to the insider information in the polity, economy, geography, as well as the business world of Sri Lanka. And because of this, they can even create or they can even destabilize the political stability in the country, as well as they can increase the debt liabilities on the Sri Lankan government. When it comes to the relevance of this article is relevant for your places in news which is often used by the UPSC as well as the international current affairs. We will not go into the details or the editorial details of this article because this article is not actually targeting directly the Indian context or the Indian national security. What we will cover here is that what is the basis of this article and why we are reading this article for the perspective of the international affairs. Secondly, we will also look into the relevance of this article as far as map is concerned. So let us see what was the actual problem which was listed in this article. Well, what happened previously was that Sri Lanka passed a separate Colombo Port City Economic Commission Bill. This commission bill was forced to provide China access to build a port city worth $1.4 billion. Well, the authorities which are claiming benefits from this scheme says that there are positives which are attached to this project. These positives are Colombo Port can be developed on the lines of Singapore or Dubai. It means that the city could be developed into an international financial hub. However, the opposition and the citizen are arguing that there are negative aspects attached to this as well. And these negative aspects, according to them, are claim that China could build the city as a colony of its own power and authorization. The second argument made by them is that the bill, which is now also an act, will provide the port city a powerful commission, and this commission will run it a substantial immunity from the Sri Lankan laws. It means that Sri Lankan laws which are applicable to the other port cities will not be applied on this Colombo port city developed by China. It means the China will have immunity from the local authorities for its activities. And this immunity can well be misused by the Chinese authorities. The next argument given by the opposition is that it will put high debt burden on the GDP of Sri Lanka, as it was seen in the case of 2017 when the Sri Sena Vikramsinghe administration was unable to repay the Chinese loan with which it was saddled by the previous government. And actually, it handed over the Hambantota port in the southern province to China on 99 years of lease. So the history can repeat itself as far as Colombo port city is concerned. And because of all these apprehensions, there is a hue and cry across the nation of Sri Lanka. Now, when it comes to the relevance of the Sri Lanka and the map of Sri Lanka, along with the Colombo, let us venture into in more details. As you can see, this is the map of Sri Lanka, and if we zoom in more, you can see that there is Colombo port on the western side of Sri Lanka along with the Sri Jayawardene. Well, Sri Jayawardene is the political capital of Sri Lanka and Colombo is the business capital of Sri Lanka. As you can see, the area which is shaded in the yellow color is actually the sand which is used to construct a separate Colombo International Financial City by China. On the northern side, you already have the existing Colombo port, and on the southern side is the development made by the Chinese authorities. If we zoom out this map, what we will see that Colombo is strategically situated around the Lakshadweep Sea. This city is also very near to the state of Tamil Nadu and Kerala of India, and it lies between the Pak state and the Indian Ocean. And because of this strategic location, what we are observing is that the current scenario of Chinese development along its string of pearls, China is trying to get near and near to the Indian localities, and this poses a security threat to India. This kind of development also poses a threat on the India's international affairs as far as Indian Ocean is concerned. And lastly, such kind of development by the China will also pose a threat to India's interference and India's relation with the countries which have very good and cordial relation with India, including the states like Maldives. Such kind of development in the Colombo port city will definitely put China into the better place against what India is currently holding in Sri Lanka. With this, now we move to the relevant question for this article. Read the question carefully and answer in the comment box. As I said, you can also go through the answers for these questions on the e-learn platform of Rouse IAS. Now we move to the next article for the day. This article was published on page 13 of the Hindu newspaper, and the same article and the same context was also given on your page 1 with a different heading. This article actually talks about a recent accord or a recent agreement which was signed between a group of 7 countries. These group of 7 countries are actually the developed nations across the globe. They signed an agreement or an accord for bringing up a global minimum corporate tax rate. Now, what does that mean? It means that now these countries or the members of this group will have a minimum common corporate tax. Corporate tax is a direct tax which is paid by the company on the profit they earn. Corporate tax is the tax on corporates' income, and it is a direct tax paid by the companies to the government. It is not a tax which can be imposed or which can be allocated or delegated to the final consumer. This tax is actually the highest paid tax in most of the nations, which are actually the developed countries. If you go by the data provided by the different tax agencies across the nation, you will find that corporate tax, apart from the income tax, is one of the highest contributor to the different GDPs of such nations. In India, of course, after the income tax, corporate tax is one of the highest grosser as far as direct taxation in India is concerned. Government of India few years back have promised to bring down the corporate tax to the minimum 25% from the back 30%. The effective taxation may differ from country to country and from period to period. As per the accord signed between these seven nations, this agreement would apply to the overseas profit. Now, what does it mean? It means that if there is a corporate agency with the name A, or let's say there is Apple Computers. So, the Apple Computers is a domestic firm to nation USA or United States of America. However, the same Apple Computer is a foreign MNC or a multinational corporation in United Kingdom. It means the profit which is earned overseas by the Apple Computers apply to the profit generated in United Kingdom. And this corporate tax, which is imposed on this Apple Computers in the United Kingdom or a company of the United Kingdom working in the USA, will have a similar and minimum corporate tax rate. It means they may come at a taxation, let's say 20%. So the Apple Computers working in United Kingdom will pay the 20%, and any company of the United Kingdom working in the USA will also pay the same 20%. Now, why will this be a beneficial? The first point being that there will be no tax evasion or tax avoidance. The second reason being these countries will benefit from the losses which were occurring due to base erosion and profit sharing. Well, both these topics have been discussed in the much detail in the previous DNS videos. And apart from these three, the first and the foremost thing is when you have a common rate of taxation between the different nations, there will be a higher tax buoyancy which these countries will face. And because of the higher tax buoyancy, their GDP will benefit and overall they will benefit from the higher revenue. If you want to read more on the global minimum corporate tax and its related benefit, you can go through the link which is given in the description regarding the 27th of April 2021 discussion. So you can read more on this taxation on the link given in the description box. With this, now we move to the question which is related to this article. Read the question carefully and answer in the comment box. With this, now we move to the next article. This article published on page 10th of the Hindu newspaper is talking about the recent achievement which was achieved by the researchers in the IIT Madras. And this article is actually talking about the Bose-Einstein condensation. Well, as far as UPSC syllabus is concerned, this is important for the achievements of Indians in the field of science and technology. UPSC has already asked a question on Bose-Einstein in 2018 mains. The question was, discuss the work of Bose-Einstein statistics done by Professor Satyendra Nath Bose and show how it revolutionized the field of physics. Well, as you can see in the question itself, they were not talking or they were not asking the question regarding the Albert Einstein. However, they were focusing on Satyendra Nath Bose and his contribution. Because as per the syllabus, UPSC is concerned only with the contribution and the achievements of Indians and not the other ones. In this article, we will focus more on what is Bose-Einstein condensate and the related topic. Well, Bose-Einstein condensate is a state of matter in which a separate atoms or the subatomic particles cooled at near absolute zero. So if the statement is it is cooled at absolute zero, that will automatically becomes incorrect. Under that condition, the subatomic particle will coalesce into a single atom mechanical entity. And what is this single entity? Well, we will discuss very soon. It means that this single quantum mechanical entity can be described as a single wave function on a near microscopic scale. That is, if we look at the microscopic scale, we will find that the entire subatomic particles will show a single wave-like function. Well, this form of matter was predicted by Albert Einstein on the basis of the quantum formulation of an Indian physicist Satyendra Nath Bose. Well, the particle in any system, if you take the ordinary system, you will find that there are different quantum states. So subatomic particles does not show a particular quantum state. And because of these different quantum states, they always try to keep themselves in a complete chaotic condition. So it is like a traffic jam. So when you look at the subatomic particles in an ordinary condition, you will find that they do not have a singular wave-like function. Bose-Einstein condensation and the aerospace engineering research from IIT Madras have recently come up with an understanding of the emergence of order in a chaotic system. It means that they have understood that how we can create a general order in a chaotic condition by drawing an analogy with the Bose-Einstein condensation. Now let us understand the entire concept in more simpler terms. Suppose that there is a subatomic particle and it can be considered as a small wave packet according to the quantum mechanism. Suppose that these are the small subatomic particles. And what they do have is that they have a small wave-like patterns. Now when we lower down the temperature of this specific material to the near Kelvin, these waves start to expand, that is, they become longer in a wavelength. So these smaller waves will become longer in their structure. Thus, they start to overlap with each other because they have limited space. So once they expand in their wavelength, they start overlapping to each other. And after some time, they just stop being an individual particle and they become a single quantum entity with a single wave function. So this is how they behave like. And when you look at this condition through a microscopic scale, you will find a single wave function inside a particular atom. Now, it might seem like a complex thing to understand. Now, assume it with a non-conventional example. Assume that these small particles are cars and they are moving in different lanes of a particular highway. Each car is moving in a particular lane. So what we will observe that we will have this kind of condition when two cars are moving in a particular lane of a highway. Now, it seems like a chaos when you look through a bird eye view. If we reduce the number of lanes to just one, so how these cars will move? Well, they will move in this condition one after the other from bumper to bumper. And on a bird eye view, we will see that there is a single wave-like pattern of movement of cars. And this will look like a continuous movement with a single wave function. So this is what is happening under the Bose-Einstein condensate situation. And this is, for your information, is the fifth state of matter after solid, liquid, gas and plasma. BEC or Bose-Einstein condense is a supercooled gas. Well, it is a kind of a gas that no longer behaves as individual atoms and particles. As I said, I was assuming particles to be like a cars. So all cars are moving in a particular direction, in a particular speed, in a particular pattern. So these individual atoms and particles, instead of behaving in a random manner, they behave like a single quantum state. NASA scientists earlier have observed the fifth state or BEC in a space for the first time as per the Bose-Einstein condensate experiment, and this experiment was taken place on International Space Station. Now, I want from you to comment in the comment box, what is the sixth state of matter which is known to the human race? So if you know the answer, comment in the comment box. As far as application of BEC is concerned, this can be applied to tests of general relativity, that is, light can be variable in speed and frequency. It can also help in applying quantum mechanics at microscopic level. Next is the use of BEC in quantum computing, of course, because it is related to the quantum physics. Next being the search of the dark energy, dark matter, as well as the gravitational waves in the universe. It can also help in the spacecraft navigation because the current experiment in the IIT Madras was also undertaken by the aerospace engineering. And the last one being the prospecting for subsurface minerals on moon and other planetary bodies. With this, now we move to the next article for the day. Now we come to the last part of today's discussion, that is scheme of the day. The scheme of the day for today is your soil health card scheme. The objective of this scheme is to give each farmer soil nutrient status of his or her holdings and advise him on the dosage of fertilizers and also the needed soil amendments that he or she should apply to maintain the soil health in long run. It simply means that this card will provide all the necessary details which can help a farmer to use the nutrients required by a crop in the most judicious and sustainable manner. This will also help the farmer to produce better crop productivity in the long run. This scheme was launched under the Ministry of Agriculture and the Farmer Welfare, which is an obvious choice. This scheme is implemented by the Department of the Agriculture for all the states and the union territories respectively. So central government does not implement this scheme. Respective state government with their agriculture department implement this scheme. This scheme was launched in 2015 under the central government initiative. When it comes to the ingredient of this soil health card, or what does this health card indicates, it includes the macronutrients including your NPK. On secondary count, it includes your sulfur, and on micro count, it includes zinc, iron, copper, magnesium, and boron. It also includes some physical parameters which are 3 in number, including your pH scale, electric conductivity, and content of the organic matter in the soil or organic carbon. Coming to the benefits of this scheme, the card will contain an advisory based on the soil nutrient status of farmer's holding. So, based on that situation or based on that information, a farmer can make an intelligent guessing or intelligent ingredient of the inputs he or she is applying on a particular field. The card shows the recommendation on dosage of different nutrient needed. It means the judicious use and sustainable use of the nutrient would be possible, and farmer would benefit from avoiding the useless use of the nutrients. As we have seen in the case of India, where NPK is used in the ratio of 6:2:1. Well, this can change with the time, but as per the economic survey, this was the basic criteria. I have rounded up the figures. The exact criteria should be 4:2:1. And through this, we can see that India is utilizing more of urea, or Indian farmers are applying more urea than actually required by the soil. So health card will definitely help to reduce this ratio. The health card will also advise the farmers on the fertilizers and the quantities he or she should apply, and also the soil amendments that he or she undertake so as to realize the optimal yield. See, when we apply more nutrient to a soil than required in actual conditions, what happens is we lead to the adverse conditions in the soil, which includes salinity, alkalinity, and also falling in the fertility of the soil. This card will help in managing the skewed fertilizer use in India. And lastly, the card will benefit in the rise of the productivity of the crops, especially in the rain-fed areas. Why? Because rain-fed areas are devoid of the irrigation facilities. And as we know that in the irrigated area, the farmer utilizes more fertilizers. So in the rain-fed area, as farmers are utilizing less fertilizer, so this card will definitely help them to utilize whatever they have in their hand in the final balance and in the best conditions and the combinations possible. And lastly, the important points of the scheme also highlights that the card will be made available once in a cycle of 2 years. So sir and ma'am, many of the websites have provided 3 years as a condition, which is absolutely wrong. The government website, including the Vikaspedia, which is run by the government, have provided a cycle of 2 years. It means that if a person has issued a card or a soil health card in 2021, he can avail the same card only in 2023. So in 21 and 22, the person will not avail the card and he has to live up with the same conditions which was given in the 2020. The another fact related to the scheme is that the soil sample will be drawn in a grid of 2.5 hectares of irrigated land and 10 hectares of rain-fed area. Why? Because on the irrigated land, as we have discussed, the application of fertilizer is much higher. And this is one of the reasons which is responsible for the green revolution in 1960s and early 70s. And all this measurement will be held through the GPS tools and the revenue maps available to the government. And lastly, the state government will provide a sum of rupees 190 per soil sample. It means the state government will give funds to the farmers in order to avail the benefits of this scheme, because agriculture is part of your state list under the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. With this, now we move to the question of the day. The answer to the previous day question is your option C, and on the right you have the today's question for the day. Read it carefully and answer in the comment box.